Got home last night after some Canadian Premier League playoff action to find Major League Soccer playoff action, to my surprise, going down. And it is playoff time in MLS, and the Vancouver Whitecaps are about to start their pursuit towards a potential MLS Cup. And by some of the things that are happening across the Major League Soccer landscape, I wouldn't put it past the Whitecaps going on a magical run here. My big caveat here is this is the worst playoff format of any professional sport.
We're back
in Major League Soccer. Like, I love MLS, but this playoff format has got to go. The Vancouver Whitecaps last year at this stage beat LAFC on aggregate, but not this silly format, which is a best 2 out of 3 for no reasonable, explicable answer.
Only one round, though.
Soccer.
No further.
And then it's single elimination.
And then it's one-offs again.
After an international break.
So the Whitecaps not only have to play FC Dallas, but they have to play the format as well. So here we go. I mean, FC Dallas beat Vancouver Whitecaps the last game of the season, but Laporta was sent off controversially, and the Whitecaps still look pretty decent. AJR, they have to be considered, and they being the Whitecaps, a considerable favorite ahead of this tie.
Yeah, well, what you say about the format, this first round tends to, separate the pretenders and the contenders because it's 3 games, right? You're not going to fluke your way as much through.
Atlanta did beat Inter Miami last year. But
even then, like, the Inter Miami one was fascinating because there was a lot of noise last year about Inter Miami not having great underlying numbers, that they were a bit over reliant on Lionel Messi.
Atlanta,
like, the thing is with the Vancouver Whitecaps, this year their underlying numbers are great, their actual numbers are great. Their losses have mostly come in freak circumstances, like Dallas getting an early red card advantage on them, or when they lost to San Jose, another early red card hurt the Whitecaps on the day. The LA Galaxy game they lost, where the wheels fell off for whatever reason, but they were missing a lot of guys. When the Whitecaps have been healthy and available, their strength this year is that they're so relentless. Like, their possession style wears down teams, it breaks them down, and it takes freak mistakes for them to concede goals, and eventually they get their goals they deserve because they're so relenting that even if it's the 88th minute, you get so tired from defending them that you make sloppy mistakes. So for the Whitecaps, I think they're favorites because of that, and I think that will be big in terms of building momentum, because from there things would get extremely tough. LAFC likely awaits in the next round. After that, I'd bet your money it's going to be Seattle in the conference final. It's a gauntlet to get to a potential MLS Cup final. I think the Whitecaps are going to really have to prove how good they are. And you do look at their injury list, their center back situation is a bit of a worry. Tristan Blackman has been training this week. So if he's back, that's absolutely massive, because the fact that Laporta would potentially be suspended for game 1, that you're still without Veselinovic, obviously we won't see. Sean Lau doesn't look like we'll see, and Pupe is back, but he's hardly played. That center back situation is a worry.
Best name in all of Major League Soccer, by the way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ollie.
I mean, that was the big cost of that Dallas defeat, was it sets up LAFC in the semi-final as opposed to later on. But the fact we're even talking that way, I think, shows you how I think a lot of people feel about this first series, which is that the Whitecaps should win this and should, make it fairly comfortable work, I think. As Alex mentions, the question is just how healthy are they going to be, and how costly could that be, particularly defensively, where you've got 2 players that you brought in the summer. One, Pooper, seems to be available now, but neither of them, that's always going to be.
That injury stinks, by the way. The injury stinks.
The injury stinks. He seems to be available now, but neither one of those 2 signings have played a minute going into the playoffs. That's not ideal.
Can't rely on them. You can't, I don't even think that they can be. They're not considered to start games, certainly. Right?
But they might have to, because you've got, who else have you got? Halbuni and
Priso.
Maybe Blackman. Priso could drop in there. Laporta's obviously.
I guess that's the best part about a best of 3. Laporta will be back.
I mean, there's just a lot that's kind of unproven in terms of that defensive group that you hope does not undermine the attacking talent that they've assembled, and the way Thomas Muller has just been lights out sensational since he signed for this club. So we'll see. This first series, I think they should have plenty to get through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even looking bigger picture. I think the Whitecaps are so good they could potentially put Hugo Lloris into retirement, and that's where all things are going. And I think that there's a sizable advantage for the Whitecaps. Like, look, what's gone on in the West. Like Lozano is like weird story coming out of San Diego. One of their top players is on the outs. I mean, it's an expansion side. Expansion sides typically, if they do surprise, have a good regular season, they struggle come playoff time. I think it's lining up nicely for the Whitecaps because I think qualitatively, they're better than the other teams. I understand the Sun Boanga connection in LAFC. I understand the pedigree, the fact that Seattle are great at tournament football. But I think that there's finally expectations around the Whitecaps. In AJR, that's not something that we've typically been able to say come playoff time. The Whitecaps are expected to win. Are you in a position to say that out loud? And if you are, who does that put pressure on?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing that stood out from this team is they have difference makers now. Because what we have to remember is this Whitecaps team over the last 3 years, especially under Vanni Sartini, their problem wasn't coming into these big games and competed. Like they pushed LAFC to the brink last year, the year before as well. Their problem has always been they can't score in the big games because they play well, but they didn't have the difference makers. The CONCACAF run was telling because they had the Sebastian Berhalters who could step up, the Brian Whites who could step up. They went out and added Thomas Muller. I think because of that, there's less pressure on individuals than before. Because last year was if Ryan Gauld isn't doing anything, the team kind of falls apart, right? Because who else was going to score than him and Brian White? Now they've got, hopefully White will be back at some point in the playoffs, don't forget, because they're kind of keeping an eye on him. Gauld is back, Muller, etc. So I guess the pressure would be on Jesper Sorensen with the attacking options. How do you get that balance right? Like who is your starting in your 4-2-3-1? Because Ahmed, Nelson, and Sabi, you're going to have to bench at least one of them. When White's back, that pushes out some other good attackers. Gauld and Muller, are we going to see them together? Is that something that's still a possibility? Berhalter and Kubas are your 2 6s. Well, Ralph Priestland's been outstanding lately. How do you keep him off the field?
All good problems to have.
All good problems to have. But for a coach in the playoffs, you make one wrong decision, everything can unravel quickly. So pressure will be on Sorensen to get that balance. And I'm confident because all year long, he's picked the right lineup every game. That's been one of his strengths as a head coach.
Yeah, I actually think like the Whitecaps would be my bet to win an MLS Cup if I was placing that bet, which really? I might very well do today. I think that they are the favorites to win MLS Cup. I think they have the best manager. They have the most depth. And you talk about those missing links. Now they have a winner in Thomas Muller. Like this guy is built to win. And it's easy when you have a leader like that to go along with the other players and their talent and ability in this squad to do something very special here. I just think that there's a right mix. They have the great manager. I just got to get this. Ollie, you go. I gotta show my love. My vote for Jesper pins. Yes for Jesper.
Okay.
Here.
What? Like, I hope you're right, but like, there we go. Vote yes for Jesper. I'm on board with that. And to that point, like, I don't know if there is great pressure on anyone in the sense that, like, of course, this would be a massive disappointment if they fall out early, given how good this season has been and given the fact that they've kind of got on the precipice of success and trophies. And aside from the Canadian Championship, they haven't, they didn't win the Champions Cup. They didn't win the Western Conference and now the playoffs as well. But so much of winning in the playoffs is about everything coming to a head at the right time and the stars aligning at the right time. And I'm just not sure that's happened with the Whitecaps. Like, I think if they win, they will be doing it in spite of a lot of things that have gone against them, because it's not just the players who are unavailable and who we know aren't going to play, in these playoffs, or at least in the opening of these playoffs. It's also guys who may be available but haven't been over the past few weeks. Like, you're trying to work back in Tristan Blackman. You're trying to work back in Brian White. Ryan Gauld has still played like very limited minutes since his return through the last few weeks of the season.
Still been winning.
I know, but is that going to continue in the biggest, highest leverage games when you've got that many players who with questions around? I hope it does, and I think the way guys have stepped up all season, we saw it in the Champions Cup run, has been incredibly impressive. But it's not as if like everything is aligning perfectly at the right time for the Whitecaps with the way the squad is right now. So that would be my concern. But I don't know that it actually puts pressure on anyone in a significant way, just because everyone has done so much good work up until this point.
Well, maybe pressure is the wrong word. For me, it would be a disappointment, anything short
No doubt.
of an MLS Cup final and a potential date with Lionel Messi. And they might not only be able to retire Hugo Lloris, but Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, and any one of the other senior citizens that are playing their football, appropriately so, in South Florida.